Welcome back to the PSYOP News Network.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lewers, and let's dive into an important component for students' achievement, lesson preparation. Lesson planning is a creative process that allows us to use both our second language acquisition with our knowledge of teaching the content. When developing these lesson plans, it is important to follow the PSYOP model. Let's first start with the feature content objectives clearly defined, displayed, and reviewed with the students. Effective instruction should be guided by content objectives that identify what the student should be able to know and do. When planning content objectives, keep the following in mind. Plan objectives that support content standards, write lesson level objectives with student-friendly language, and limit the number of objectives to 1 or 2. You should also share the objectives orally and writtenly, and you should review the objectives at the end of the lesson. The bottom line is that for English language learners, the objectives must be written to the skill of the students, stated in a simple way with action words, shared writtenly and orally, and tied to grade-specific instruction. Thank you, and I'll pass it on to Mary with the next feature.
And thank you, Jessica. And now we are on to today's language objective forecast. We start off with the 4 domains of literacy in language objectives, which are speaking, writing, listening, and reading. Now, language objectives must be stated clearly with active verbs. And then according to achievethecore.org, language objectives are the how students will show what they are learning. Now, sadly, language objectives aren't easy. They are based on the student's needs, which can be fluency, grammar, and so on and so forth. An example of a language objective will be students will be able to recognize proper nouns. And then to find language objectives, you can go to your state standards or use Common Core for finding accurate language objectives. Language objectives should meet learning goals for academic language. That is a very important concept. Content language objectives can be connected. This is the final part. And that is all for today's forecast. And now we are on to Julia Jones with appropriate content concepts.
Hi, yes, thank you, Mary. I'm Julia Jones, and we are now going to be diving into the topic of appropriate content concepts. Is it appropriate for our children or not appropriate? As a language arts teacher, I like to keep 4 things in the back of my mind for making content comprehensible for English learners, the PSYOP model. The first is using the student's first language. The second is the student's English language proficiency. The third is the schooling background of the child and their background knowledge of the topic. And the fourth and final, if it's age appropriate or not. I won't have my first graders write a 20-page paper on a book that they just read, but what I will have them do is write a few short sentences so I'm able to see that they are comprehending what they're reading. If any student is struggling with this material, we are going to pull back on their prior knowledge together until that's mastered and then move forward together. Now here's Leisha Bailey to take over.
Thanks, Julia. Leisha here with supplementary materials. What exactly are supplementary materials? Well, I'm going to give you a few examples from our textbook. The first is hands-on manipulatives. Let's say that you want students, like you're practicing rhyming words, and you want students to pick a word that rhymes with row. You're going to take a spatula or maybe a fly swatter and have the students hit the word. I picked toe that rhymes with the word row, and this is just a better way for students to be able to learn because there's an action involved and it's kinesthetic and not just flat literacy. Next is pictures and visuals. Here I have a line graph and a Venn diagram. These are going to be important for kids to learn because it's not just reading a textbook. This brings it off the page and is more visual. Why do we need supplementary materials? According to TESOLtrainer.com, authors of textbooks don't know our students the way that we know our students, and they don't know what exactly our students need. Also, some of our students are going to need to be able to do more than just read it and hear it. They're going to need to be able to see it or do it. And this makes it more interesting and fun. Now to Gina.
And thank you, Leisha, for that wonderful segment. My name is Gina, and I'm going to be diving into adaptations of content. First, you ask how we do this in the classroom. It is first important to note that you need to summarize text in order to focus on key points. Next, it's important to elaborate text in order to add more information for our students. The first topic that we learn about is summarizing. Summarizing focuses on historical events, steps, and/or plots in our text. It can be written in bullet point form or graphic organizer as well. Next, we talk about elaborating. Elaborating can be organized into small steps or logical chunks of information for those students. It can also provide background information to them as well. During elaborating, we learned that it is very crucial to learn how to rewrite texts for our students. There are many guidelines that we need to follow in order to learn how to rewrite our texts for our students. First, it is important to decide what the students need to learn. Next, we need to focus on concrete concepts and then the abstract concepts after that. We also need to reduce non-essential details found in the text. It is also important to use visual representations for those visual learners as well. We can also elaborate concepts only if needed. And lastly, we can check word choice and sentence structure. As you can see, adaptations are super important for our students in our classroom. Overall, adapting text takes time. It's also not easy, however, it is super beneficial for those students. Adapted versions may be longer than the original, and that's super important to know as well. Adapted texts are also great for those English language learners in your classroom. And lastly, having a colleague double check your work if you are confused is wonderful to do. Thank you so much, and next we have Leisha with Meaningful Activities.
Thanks, Gina. I'm still Leisha, but I'm back here with another segment on meaningful activities. Why do we need meaningful activities? Our English language learning friends need to be able to make connections with what they already know, because too many times they get stuck doing activities different from whatever our English proficient students know, and that's not helping them at all. So here are a few examples. This example is from Fluent U. This is just an open-ended question that says, I went to the mall. And so maybe you have a student write down a response that answers this question, and then they can share with a partner or maybe even a small group, and they can go back and forth and then decide on whose ending to the story they think is better. And then over here, this is from A Walk in the Chalk, and it is just a weekend update. So this, you write this on the board, it says this past weekend and it's a blank line. And they're gonna fill in the blank. What did they do this last weekend? This is gonna work on vocabulary. This is gonna work on fluency, comprehension, remembering what happened this weekend, and communication all in one. That's all the time we have today, folks. This has been Jess, Mary, Julia, Leisha, Gina, and Leisha again with Lesson Prep. Thanks for watching.